If you're like me and you find that the 2021 retro version of the Jordan 1 Natural Grey isn't up to your liking, I'll be showing you a couple of quick and easy tweaks you can do to make them look as faithful as possible compared to the 1985 version. So both of these are the retro version, and the one on the right is intentionally aged to look like a dead stock pair from 1985. Honestly, Nike did a great job at the overall shape and construction for this new 2021 version, but there are just a couple of glaring issues that stands out, which is the bulky toe box and also the color of the tongue, which has an overly blue tint instead of the same shade of white as the body. One mistake I see from individuals who are going for the age look is that they go overboard with yellowing the midsole but don't go for the same balanced treatment on the upper, resulting on a stark contrast which looks unnatural to the eye at first glance. To illustrate the problem, I'll use a quick example here. Let's assume I want to make a Photoshop composite. If I take a base layer of background I want to use and just paste a person from another photo just like that, it'll look out of place because we're not matching the lighting, the color, the shadow, and small little details like that. Instead, you have to also work on matching the second photo so that it'll blend naturally with the first photo. As you can see here, it looks much better and fitting compared to the first result. And this is exactly what I'm trying to achieve here with the neutral grey pair today. So a quick summary of what I did was flattening the protruding toe box and reshaping them to a slimmer shape that looks much closer to the 85 version. Next, I used a dead stock pair from Foxtrot Uniform as a reference point for what I want to achieve, which is a natural age look instead of overdoing it, going crazy with the yellowing and whatnot. The past year has been pretty wild, as people intentionally beating their pair to death was never ever a thing to sneakerheads back in the days. But thanks to Foxtrot Uniform and also Hidden NY and other mood board pages, the term vintage is soaring to a new high, and you have people offering their takes on the neo-vintage treatment on new retro pairs. But personally for me again, I think that they took the beating too far, and for my pair right here, I like to stay as natural as possible. The natural age look that I want to achieve is kinda subtle, as it doesn't really stand out unless you have a completely brand new pair of the 2021 version paired next to the 85 version. Like I said, I use Foxtrot Uniform's dead stock pair as my reference. As you can see here, when it's on its own, you don't really see much yellowing on the upper ladder except for the slightly yellowed midsole. But that's not the case, because once you put it side by side with the 2021 version, you can start seeing their color difference. The white leather upper is slightly yellowed or cream in color, which is normal because it is a 36-year-old sneaker after all. Before aging the sneaker, let's try to fix the bulky shape of the toe by using the ironing method where you can find all over YouTube. So basically all you need is a towel or rack, an ironing machine or steamer, socks or shoe tree to keep the front sturdy and steady when we iron them. Make sure you wet the towel and cover the toe box with them and begin ironing it, and try not to do it more than 10 seconds at one go, as we don't want to damage and undo the glue. After ironing them, you can also use your fingers to shape the toe box like what I'm doing here. Rinse and repeat the process until you're satisfied with how slim the toe box looks. It took me no more than a few minutes to complete the process, and you can immediately see the difference between the original protruding toe box and the slimmer one, which looks much better after it is ironed. Next, let's move on to aging the Jordans so that they look like a pair from 1985. So first of all, the easiest way to do this is to grab one of these sneaker stainers from Fox. Just follow their Instagram page and they'll update you when they restock the stainers. They drop them on a pretty regular basis, once every couple of weeks, so just wait for their announcement if you don't have one of these. The other method, if you don't have the stainer, is to use the candle dye method from Vintage Cakes Gallery, who is the pioneer in my opinion on aging soles and whatnot. But that method can be a little tricky because it takes more time to prep the sole, and you also can't control the intensity of the yellowing as easily as the sneaker stainer. You also need alcohol swab, cotton pads, baby oil, olive oil, or whatever you're comfortable with to darken the suede, which is optional, and also a piece of paper to adjust the intensity of the sneaker stainer before you apply them on the sneaker itself. And finally, you'll need a pair of the Natural Grey Jordan 1. I'm starting out by applying the stainer on the midsole all the way around the sneaker. You don't have to be overly cautious when you're applying them. It's totally fine if you bleed into the upper because you can still emulate the dried glue look. You can also get rid of them by using the alcohol swab later. To my experience, One layer is dark or yellow enough, but you can also go for multiple layers if that's your type of thing. But for me, I want them to have that natural aged creamy look, so I'll be working on lightening the first layer which I have just applied. Take as many alcohol swab you need in order to tone down to the final shade of yellow you want. Next, let's work on the tongue, which is ridiculous as it looks more blue than white or cream. So for applying the tongue, you can run it over directly with the stainer and then use the alcohol swab to tone down the color. Or you can also paint the cotton swab with the stainer and then applying it this way instead. Both method is fine and it's up to your preference. Again, I don't want to go too overboard with the yellowing, so I'll be using a good chunk of the alcohol swab to repeatedly lighten the tone of the yellowed tongue. And now, we're gonna work on the body with the same methods like what we did with the tongue. You can either stain them directly with the pen or dab the body with the stained cotton swab. I find that applying it with a stained alcohol swab gives you a better and balanced control over the intensity of the yellowing. As I'm going for the subtle and natural age look, I will be using many of the alcohol swab repeatedly until it matches the same tone with the midsole, but slightly lighter in color in order to create a depth and make it look more realistic. As we're trying to make the upper look aged as naturally as possible, don't be surprised that you'll be using many of the alcohol swab to repeatedly rub on the leather until you get the desired cream color that you like. The beauty of this version or effect I'm going for is how subtle it looks, because if you don't put it side by side with a complete new pair, most people won't even realize this pair has been tinkered because they look white to the untrained and unsuspecting eye. Once again, let's have a look at Fox's dead stock pair, and they look completely fine and white on their own, but once he puts it to the newer version, you can immediately see the difference and contrast in their tone and color, which is exactly what I'm trying to replicate on my pair. Now let's look at my aged pair before and after, and you can also see their differences right away. So this is the example which I have explained earlier in the video, where I think, in my opinion, most make the mistake of just yellowing the sole and not anywhere else, as it will look unnatural. If you want to take things a step further or better, you can also paint the edges and threads to create more depth. And lastly, it's also optional if you want to darken the suede or not. Personally for me, I think it's perfect as it is. I like the color and texture, so I won't be tinkering them, but if you want, you can apply baby oil on them until they are dark enough for your liking. I feel like at this stage, I'm happy with looking like a dead stock pair from 1985, and then wear them normally and let it age as it would according to your own daily lifestyle, instead of destroying, sanding, or bringing the knife to your Jordans. I find it absurd that people are paying $150 to $300 for people to trash your pair. Anyone can basically do it themselves at home, and it won't take more than 2 hours to achieve the desired result. So yeah, to sum it up, if you want to yellow them the easy way, get the Foxtrot Uniform stainers, or you can use the candle dye method from Vintage Cakes Gallery, or ultimately, just wear them daily and beat them up organically. Thanks for watching, don't hesitate to ask any questions and I'll be glad to help. Stay safe and have a nice day.